software engineer. She's a software engineer, and she enjoys hackathons. She's involved in various communities, and tonight she is going to be talking to us about data privacy in relation to social media, with a very interesting backstory. Just a bit of background. She's been involved in a lot of diverse software projects, ranging from tracking bee management to evaluating risk for small businesses. So yeah, thank you, Pearl, and I'll hand it over to you.
Let's just share some slides. Please, anyone, if you want to ask questions as it goes, this is open, like just kind of raise your hand and get unmuted and we go. So where is your privacy? So this talk actually was specifically, sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of, let's not unmute anyone. Okay, this talk was, there we go, gone. This talk was inspired by actually an event, or this presentation was inspired by an event. It happened about 2 years ago. There were a bunch of us. We were in Bloemfontein for an NGO, and we decided to go out for the night because obviously that's what you do if you're in a new city and you just finished doing the whole day. And we get in the car park, and what do we find? We find some poor lady's purse. It has a few things in it. It's got some cash, it's got a driver's license, it's got an ID in it, but it didn't actually have anything that we could get hold of them, and like nothing more than like driver's license and ID. And you know how IDs are nowadays. You don't want to have a loss of it. So we went into the restaurant and we're like, what are we going to do? Are we going to give it to security? What? And we're like, well, we're IT professionals, so we think we can track this person down. And so the game started playing. Before we continue, I just want to show something else that happened in terms of privacy. And this was actually by an organization that deals with privacy, and they did a similar experiment. If everyone can hear, I hope.
What's the name?
Joel.
What was the name?
Alex.
Alex. There you go, Johnny.
If you like our Facebook page, we give you a free hot drink and a free pastry.
We have a new like for Damien. We have a new like for Damien.
Hey, Carly, you standing by?
Standing by.
Hi there, can I help?
Yeah, just liked your Facebook page. Okay, I'll search Facebook now. I'm searching Google. I have a phone number. I've got his email address.
Okay, Carly, are you ready for information on Damien?
Yep, I am.
Mother's maiden name is banks with
Carly, you know blue scarf.
What's the name?
Nicholas.
Nicholas. His date of birth, 7th of May. She lives at 38A.
Just be a couple of seconds.
2 children, age 4 and 6. Previous address. I've got the postcode.
Yep, got it. Damien, age 26 and a fitness instructor.
How do you know that?
Where did you go to UCL? Martin went to South Thames College, assistant psychologist at Great Ormond Street.
How did you know?
Huh? Pardon?
You know I'm a Christian as well.
Oh, yeah, we know everything about you, Martin. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Anna from Russia.
Okay. So let's just move on. Sorry. And we'll go back to present. So we started with some rules. Very similar to what those people were doing. We were only going to use what would be pretty much publicly available, or available to pretty much anyone who could get it. If you could get a free trial and use that free trial, hey, that's awesome, we'd do that. We were allowed to phone people. Obviously, if we thought we had the person, we wanted to give them a call and let them know. And we would only reveal one of us wasn't an IT professional, and they were made to be the, how can we say, judge and jury. They would give us about 30 minutes each. And every 30 minutes, they would give us a little piece of information from the wallet. And if we used something that was personal or a database, we had to record the database and we had to say why and how, because there are some things you have to use. So the first goal was to get their name and surname. And we got their name and surname pretty much off the ID. We knew they were in Bloemfontein. You might notice on the side, we've got pictures of Evolt. Is Evolt in the room? If you can, please shout out. I don't know actually if Evolt's here.
I don't see him. I think he's hiding. He's afraid.
Ah, geez. So Evolt was very, very, very nice. And Evolt said, hey, he's going to be our volunteer for tonight. I haven't really done much interactions with the Evolt, so I thought, hey, this is awesome. So as we go through this, I'm going to use examples that I used for Evolt, while also telling our story of what we did in this instance 2 years ago. So the first tool we used was Facebook and LinkedIn. Pretty easy. You put the person's name in. You can usually get an idea of where they are. In the situation of Evolt, I kind of knew he was in Cape Town. I had that impression, but I really just used the information I had in terms of name and surname first. And we can see Evolt had not very many hits, but I did know that he was pretty much a software individual and was in his own organization. So, hey, my top hits immediately was who I believed was Evolt. And in LinkedIn, the top hit there was ZA Evolt Horn, and that matched that profile, which said, hey, I have a hit. This is an individual that looks the same. So now I've got 2 data points. So I can start using these 2 data points to start finding out more about this individual. So what happens when there's a lot of people? Well, first thing first is share city. If you've got indications of a photo somewhere, that's awesome because it makes validation easier. In the case where we had the person's driver's license, our judge and jury could validate off the driver's license if the pictures started looking like the individual we were trying to track. So I started looking into Evolt. The other individual we were looking at, they had lots and lots and lots and lots of friends, which is awesome. Evolt set his privacy up at some points, or Evolt just has no friends, which did make it a lot harder for me. So then it's like, well, let's use a photo. So we could do something like Tinai, which is a web crawler. Sometimes you do this and you see, hey, this person's a stock photo individual. Evolt's not a stock photo individual. So we knew it was a real person. And yes, you sometimes get fake people. Facebook is like that. So if they are friends, start checking them out, see work details, see if they mention the other person, find out if there's any organization details. If it's non-friend, but you've got managed to get their LinkedIn work address, you can then find an individual who works at the same place as them, and then you can reverse check on Facebook. Usually this will give you a person's phone number, a friend's phone number, a colleague's phone number. In the instance where we were in Bloemfontein, we were doing this at 7:30 p.m. We managed to find her work's phone number. The problem was that we were leaving the city pretty much the next morning, and their offices closed for that Saturday. It actually closed on Friday. So their offices were closed on Friday, and no one was going to answer the phone on Monday. And we didn't really want to phone them on Monday morning saying, hey, by the way, we're in Joburg and we've got your ID. It would have been a bad time. The nice thing is every time you iterate through one of these, you can just carry on reiterating and nailing down more and more applicable information. So you're basically creating a database of individuals and relationships. Okay. Now, in Evolt's situation, Evolt didn't have friends, but Evolt does post some messages. And so we went through his messages like you can. And there was an individual that struck my interest immediately, Hannah Horn. Oh, look, the surnames are the same. The second you see someone with the same surname, you immediately want to go and say, hey, this individual in particular is usually a family member or a relationship with a person on a social media site. 90% of the time, you'll be right. Well, hopefully in South Africa. Awesome. So I go and I look at Hannah Horn. Now, Hannah Horn hasn't actually done the same privacy as Evolt. Now I've confirmed that Evolt is Hannah's son, and we can see Maureen over there. With Hannah only having one son that she's claimed about, I've got a 75% confidence that Maureen actually is her daughter-in-law. That makes it very easy. Unfortunately, Maureen might not be on Facebook, or it might be private. But that's the type of things you want to go and look at. And you can also look at contact information and basic information. There really wasn't much there for Hannah. But if Evolt does come online, say hi to Maureen for me. The next thing you look out for is any type of pictures that will provide information. So company names, you can do some SIPC searches. So you can do some SIPC searches, and SIPC searches absolutely are perfectly allowable in my rules. SIPC is free, and it's wonderful, and it gives you more information than you ever want. Look for car registrations. That's a very nice car registration right over there. And that's actually taken from a video of Evolt's. It's not Evolt's car. I'm 99% sure of it. Evolt was in the car behind, but that tells me a little bit more about that individual. Look for house addresses. House addresses and details is also quite nice. There's things we can do there. And also look for potential social engineering opportunities. So as I said before, if you see someone and it looks like they work in the same place and you think you can give them a ring without tipping off your target, you could probably get some information just with a very nice story. In our situation, we started, once we had managed to confirm in Bloemfontein, her old work, we managed to start finding out where she now is working. And we started getting colleagues' phone numbers straight off Facebook with no issues at all. And we were just correlating between Facebook and LinkedIn. So we were saying, is this person on Facebook? Do they have details? They're shared with this individual. Awesome, they're on LinkedIn. The person who we were tracking in Bloemfontein, it was got a little bit scary at one point, about 20 minutes into our investigation, because we realized that her sister worked for the National Prosecuting Agency, and we had to decide whether we were going to stop or continue, just because it was a little bit on that subject, if you know what I mean. So let's look at SIPC. SIPC is free. This is a search that I did on myself, just with information. Now, SIPC gives some really nice information sometimes. We can see a change was made on me, and they literally give all the information that you do not want to have public in public. So you've got to love the government. And all you need is an organization name. So the only reason I'm not showing Evolt's information here is Evolt did not register No Fuss. So No Fuss is actually what's called a sole proprietorship. And sole proprietorships, what happens is it's treated as your individual and no one really tracks you. I'm sharing this, most of this information has changed anyway, and I'm not really worried. If you want to come over and give me a birthday present, you know, on the 30th of March, it's my birthday, say kudos to me. Just so you know, when I was working in credit bureaus for businesses, none of this was secret. CIPC gives all of this out if you're registered with him. So just know the second a real CIPC search is done in a credit bureau, they know absolutely everything, and they just need to either know the company name, the company number, or a check there. And the second you get this, you can actually get judgments off the individual. You can see if they've got any legal cases against them, where those legal cases were opened, how much those legal cases were, who those legal cases were with, pretty easily just by using some law searches. I'm not allowed to say which ones because I'm still contained in an NDA on that. But CIPC is nice and open. Pretty much anyone can look at them. Now, what happens if they did not register their company? Well, there's a tool called Rocket Search. It gives you email addresses. It gives you social media sites. It gives you phone numbers. Once I'd known that Evil Horn, I could literally just copy Evil Horn's LinkedIn details. And it managed to get, I reckon these were Evolt's emails, and they correlated with Evolt's history. This also correlated with Evolt's business name. It correlated with the area I knew he was looking. It said he was doing freelance developer work, which matched everything I was saying. I was awfully happy about that. It gave me his GitHub page, everything straight off the bat. I didn't pay a cent. Just nice and easy. Okay. Other thing is, if they have a house, you can get personal details. Unfortunately, here you need to pay. The second you got address, you can get the purchaser and seller who last purchased and sold a house. It provides ID numbers of the individuals. And now, if you know where the individual lives, and you do this, it's going to cost you 80 Rand. You can actually see then if they're renting or not. That's quite nice to know. Well, I like to know that type of stuff. As well, once you know if the person owns the house, then you know exactly where they live. You know that they've got a financial interest in South Africa and a financial interest in a specific place. And that like literally ties them down into one location. If not, an evil situation, you can just do a simple vehicle registration check, and we can thank TransUnion for this, and your first check is free. So no one will post their VIN number, but Evolt 5 years ago had a YouTube channel. I believe I'm his 76th view. So he has great distribution there. And during that, I was able to find what I believed there were 2 vehicle registration numbers that could potentially have been vehicles 4x4 car that he likes going on 4x4s, and that is absolutely free. That gives you the vehicle's estimated price if you can figure out roughly what the mileage is. If they're registered with insurance, that then gives you pretty much what the book value the insurance has insured it for. It then also potentially gives you information of who the owner is. So these sites are quite nice. And this is by TransUnion. This is called First Check. Very nice and easy and quick and simple. There are a few other of these coming up at the moment, and it really isn't hard to do. It's open with your vehicle registration number. I tried it also on my vehicle just to confirm, and I typed my vehicle details in wrong, and it gave me someone else's vehicle details. And it's like, is this your vehicle? Does this look like your vehicle? And I'm like, well, I can purchase the report anyway. That's fine. So then we come down to some outcomes that we had. Okay. In our first instance, we didn't actually manage to track down the individual. It took us about an hour and a half. We had an absolutely awesome time doing it. We found out all their work details. We got colleagues' numbers from LinkedIn. We managed to get their business. We found out pretty much about their sister. We also found out where their old home was, their family home. We found out where their new home was in terms of area, but not the exact house address. And eventually we managed to get a colleague on the phone who said, because we had found their phone number, but they weren't answering what was registered. So we then managed to get a colleague on the phone who would phone their new number on our behalf. And that's how we said it. It's like, oh, we don't really want to bug them. And we want this phone call to come from someone they know. Just let them know that we're here. And they thought that that was too much effort. So they're like, well, why don't we just give you the phone number? Oh, that would be great. Awesome. When they pitched up, they were really delighted because they know how much it takes to get a driver's license. They know how much issues there are on it. They gave us a bunch of money, which was nice. And they gave us a free bottle of wine and paid for our meal, which was very, very, very rewarding, and we made a friend. In Evolt's case, Evolt was harder to get private information directly, simply because nowadays, Evolt doesn't necessarily really post a lot that's public. We did manage to get his mother's maiden name, potentially wife's name, Maureen. We got 2 number plates that looked like either were there. But what we were able to do is the second we could pin down a number plate and understand that once we done a number plate check, we get a VIN number and an engine number of that vehicle and the identity of the individual, we can then start committing identity fraud if we really want. And the second you start getting this information, you can also see if the vehicle was financed, where the vehicle was financed for. Now, you must understand that a lot of the times when you phone the banks for certain information, they start doing these credit checks on you and they start asking these questions, right? And they're all automated questions. If you get enough information, they can say, well, do you have an account with Vodacom? If you've done a reverse number check on a number, you can actually pull up if they have an account with Vodacom or not. So it's a pointless question. If they say, oh, is your vehicle financed with this, or do you have a debit order from this, and it's a vehicle financing, you can look up the vehicle financing and you can say, hey, yes, I do, or I don't. And as far as they know, you are the individual. So actually, phone banking potentially can have issues if you are good enough at this and you get enough information, which is a risk. And so I'd warn people to pretty much make things private. Understand there's things that you cannot protect against. So with Evolt, I got more information from Hannah, which is his mother's social information, than I actually got directly from Evolt's Facebook page. And that's where it started getting quite interesting, because that's where we were able then to confirm Evolt's vehicle images and pictures. We were then able to find out and confirm that the YouTube channel actually was linked to the Evolt that we suspected. And that was then awesome. We could just confirm everything and move on. Yeah, so I'm opening it up to questions about how we do these types of things and why, and what are some of the type of things that you can do to protect yourself.
Hey, Joan, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. I thought I'd share my new favorite one that I learned recently. If you were trying to figure out where people have accounts, specifically for those lovely banking questions, go onto social media and see who they're complaining about. People always complain about who their service providers are, right?
Yeah, so Evolt actually has done that. He complained about a service provider. It was his fiber solution actually. And that's right there. You know that he was, or what someone does is they go and they say, oh, I'm looking for a new service provider. This person isn't good. Can you give me recommendations? And you do pick that up. Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I've got a question. So based on what you were talking about, once you've managed to look somebody up on TransUnion, what types of identity fraud are you at risk, or is the victim at risk for at this point?
Okay, so in terms of identity fraud, if you do a TransUnion check, you got to understand that you potentially have their ID number, their name, their surname, their address. If you can get that, you can potentially get a little bit more information. If it's local to you, then you could potentially just drive out and see where they are. And if you see where they are, then you can get their vehicle registration number, which also gives you their financing. That then opens up pretty much all your credits. So identity fraud comes in two types. It's first-person fraud and it's third-person fraud. So you're opening yourself up to third-person fraud. First-person fraud is I am going to misrepresent who I am. Third-person fraud is someone I don't know is going to pretend that they're me. You pretty much nowadays need to get a ID card. If you've got enough information about the person, you can actually just request a new ID card and actually possibly even make a new ID card with your face on it. Once you've done that, you can open up bank accounts.
Yeah, it's pretty scary what you can find on that sub-C search though. The fact that you've got address information with your ID number.
Well, it's not just address. So with sub-C search, I've actually dealt with the sub-C feeds that sub-C sends out to the TransUnion credit reports, and it is absolutely scary. It's directors' information. With that, you can cross-search one director with another company because it's just ID numbers. So what you can do is you can research first the company that you've seen them with. You get the ID number with them, and then you can register. You can search off their ID number all the companies that they're associated with or have been registered as a director with. So then you know every company they're registered with, and you know the people that they interact with on a daily basis. Simpson, I think you're mute.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I've got a potentially unrelated one. Who have you stalked with all of this wealth, with this wealth of information that you've got?
So
Resources.
it depends who you want to stalk. So I was doing it for fun, and it's more fun to do it for a purpose. I'm not really the stalkerish type of individual. But your number one tool in doing this is having an inquisitive knowledge. And if you see someone interesting, it is possible to trace them. what a lot of times happens if you want to go and you don't necessarily want to tip the person off, what you do is you then create a fake Facebook account. You befriend 3 or 4 friends if you can. And then by association, you befriend them. And then you find more information about them. And that's not who I've stalked. That's more like how one can stalk in a secret way. But it is a little bit more exposed. It can actually tip someone off that you are stalking them. For a small period of time, I worked in an organization that, well, on the side, they were doing credit reports for individuals and to check to see if there was fraud going on. So it's pretty much more white hat type of stuff and just doing a validation check. And I think there were about 20 or 30 people that we did it on. And about 10 of them were lying about their details.
Okay, cool. Pico has a question. Are we going to cover how to protect your privacy?
So okay, so there's some really cool tips on how to protect your privacy. So if we go to property registrations, if you're buying a property, this doesn't always work for everyone, but buy it in a company. The problem there, though, is that CIPSI is pretty much open. So you either have them paying 80 Rand or you have them paying 1,000 Rands to get the CIPSI details. I personally would buy property in a business rather than as an individual if I could. That allows you to hide your own ID numbers in private property, because you don't really want people to see how much property you own for 86 Rand. 2, as well, register vehicles in a company rather than in yourself. If you can't register a vehicle in your company, register it in a PO box if you've got access to that. That allows you then, if they do a credit check on your vehicle, they get the information, obviously, that the TransUnion or that the credit bureau would have, and no one can stalk you at a PO box. It's just not worth anyone's time. I would actually say, if you use Facebook, don't use it in your name, actually. And what we have seen in terms of Facebook is less and less people do use Facebook, and they are moving on to things like TikTok in terms of the youth. But the real rule is, don't put out there what you're not willing for people to discover. And the reality is, we are in an age of information where people want to communicate with their friends. They want to communicate with other individuals, and not all the ways that they're putting it out or putting stuff about themselves is private that they want private and public that they want public. You can get away. Yeah, you can get away where you say, hey, I'm just going to make my whole life private, or private to friends. My ex-wife's actually better at this than me. As I said, she stalks me fairly, well, I was talking earlier, she stalks me fairly regularly. The one nice thing about LinkedIn is if someone is stalking you, they do inform you. So yeah, I get informed. Actually, I was saying earlier, I actually get informed fairly regularly that my ex-wife's looking at my LinkedIn profile. And I've had my ex-wife send pictures of things I've said in a private setting, where she theoretically shouldn't have any access to because I blocked her. But it's just so easy to work around that. So the actual true winner in this is my ex-wife. She's a star at this type of stuff. Awesome.
So we've got 2 JetBrains vouchers to give away to 2 lucky attendees. And if you like to use IDs like IntelliJ or plugins like ReSharper, there's a question up there on the chat. The first person to answer it will win a JetBrains voucher code to purchase one of these things. And the question is, what items did Joe find in that wallet while they were in Bloemfontein? So what did they have to start off with, basically? So whoever answers that first in the chat gets a voucher code. You got to list all the items. Okay. Joe, I've got another question. Which social media platform do you think is the least secure?
Facebook is probably the least secure, even though, look, Facebook has had a long history with security. What Facebook still doesn't tell you is who's viewing your profile. It is still very public. You don't even need to log in to browse Facebook. And there are actually some very creepy people on Facebook. And there's a lot of scam artists on Facebook too. So I would say Facebook. And I think MG Ferreira has answered correctly. Which was money, ID, and driver's license.
Thanks, Joe. And then for the second prize that we've got, do you want to choose a specific question or somebody who attended today's meetup that gave you joy during this talk?
Oh, geez, can I pretty much ask a question? How would you protect someone reverse searching your vehicle registration?
Right, that's a great question. Yeah, first answer on the chat. Please keep those coming, and the first answer will receive a JetBrains voucher code.
So you can buy it through a company, but you'd still have to register the company's postal address. So I'm willing to give it to Carl. But Uber is a better way of doing all of it. Just don't even own a car.
Oh, that's some out-of-the-box thinking. Nice one, Nati. So Carl, please send an email to admin@developerug.org.za and follow up to claim your prize. And yeah, we'll follow up with that.
Yeah, guys, can I ask a question? One thing that we don't seem to distinguish is that there's 2 different use cases here. There's you want to protect yourself from a malicious actor. That's one use case. But the other use case that we seem to be ignoring is that you need to protect yourself just from mass surveillance. Like, so whenever you go online, whenever you go on Google, whenever you're on Facebook, even if you're not sharing your data in such a way that it can be used by a malicious actor, you're still sharing all your data with Facebook, and that still opens you to a different kind of privacy issue.
So I've had this debate on and off about mass data and mass data basically like reading it and trying to find out more about you and things like that. I don't actually think it's as malicious as an individual trying to trace you and follow you. And I think there's going to be still time while the jury's out on actually how valuable that data really is. I think it's more valuable in terms of advertising than anything else. But that's how it is, you know. If I was talking about mass data, the way to actually hamper mass data being useful is actually to provide more information that's untrue than true, and then mass data actually becomes valueless because they can't rely on the results. So if someone is mass reaping data, you can get anything with a cost, but how much is your information worth? And I think your information is worth less. Ferreira, you've raised your hand.
Hello, yes. Speaking of that, you know a company called DataC and Memory, I think they're also doing the same kind of thing, where they would collect information on your behalf and store it for you, and then they will allow you to sell it and stuff like that. Any thoughts on that?
So yet again, they're allowing you to sell your own data. I haven't really looked them up personally. I just think people overemphasize what their personal data is worth. And not everyone is worth the same amount. So things like rocket search, they are actually used by advertising companies to directly market people. And in order to get the information, they are using mass store data. That's how they get their money, is someone goes and says, hey, I want I want information on this person and I'm willing to pay you for this type of person. And then they've got a list of these types of people, if that makes sense. So yet again, the money's at the moment more in marketing rather than anything that would be directly nefarious against you. But yeah, it's a personal view. Anything else?
I don't see anybody else raising their hands. Joan, I'd just like to thank you again for this very informative talk. It sounds like you guys had a lot of fun in Bloom. And Bloom, as we should all know, is a very fun place. So I'm glad you managed to enhance the experience. I'd also like to thank the organizers for putting this all together, and most of all the participants. Thanks, guys. Without you, we would not have a group. So yeah, just like to thank you again, Joan, and looking forward to hearing more about data privacy in a future talk.
Definitely, yeah. With Poppy coming along, Errol did give his permission for you to share his information, right? It's now going public.
It is now going public. Yeah, he
well,
did.
More
he
public.
Did he did say I could make it public.
Okay, cool. I think lastly, just want to thank Intellect for sponsoring the Zoom room, where we luckily don't have a time limit on this one, like so many meetings. And yeah, Intellect's always looking for good software engineers, developers, marketing, a little bit of marketing, yeah. So if you know anybody, just reach out, intellect.co.za. You'll find all the information over there.
Thank you, Ezra. And thank you for setting the Zoom account up. Yeah, if there are no more questions, I bid you all a great evening and an awesome week going further. Cheers.